This is ogforums.com Real Talk, an unfiltered, independent perspective on Acumatica Cloud ERP. My name is Tim Rodman, and I want to mention three things in this pre-recorded intro before we get started. First, thank you to our sponsors. Our first sponsor is Paya. Paya offers Acumatica users a suite of industry-leading payment orchestration tools. Far beyond native Acumatica payments, Paya enables EMV NFC terminals for counter-sale. They offer a frictionless customer portal through their click-to-pay solution, and they support most e-commerce platforms and point-of-sale solutions used with Acumatica, such as One Retail and AcuPOS. And best of all, omni-channel reconciliation is available for all their solutions. Our second sponsor is DataSelf. DataSelf Analytics is a revolutionary reporting solution that enables organizations to make the most informed decisions faster and easier than ever. It uniquely simplifies business intelligence, empowers anyone to build and access dashboards, and delivers critical business insight when and where you need it. Our third sponsor is Aldrich Web Solutions. Are you a distributor using Acumatica, yet struggling with an e-commerce fit? US-based Aldrich Web Solutions out of Marion, Illinois, has 2 decades of experience helping distributors find success online. Our team of experts built the integration, creating websites that work effortlessly with Acumatica. With our reputation for swift customer service and meticulous attention to detail, we are the perfect fit for distributors needing online solutions. Please take a minute to support this podcast by clicking each one of the sponsor banners located at augforums.com/sponsors. Our sponsors track clicks, and every click helps to support this podcast. The second thing I'd like to mention is that I'm always looking for victims. I mean guests. If you use Acumatica in any capacity, no matter how small, I'd love to talk with you. Check out augforums.com/podcast and click the link near the top of the page to learn more about being a guest on the podcast. Third and finally, I'd love to see you listed on my Rolodex. Check out augforums.com/Rolodex to find out who else is using Acumatica and read the instructions at the top to see how you can add yourself to the list. All right, that's it for the pre-recorded intro. Let's get started. Today is Tuesday, March 12th, 2024, and this is episode number 129. You can find related links on the episode page at augforums.com/episode 129. Today, I'm talking with Ben and Rebecca from Paya, a Nouvelle company, about cool new stuff that they have going on. Ben and Rebecca, thanks for coming on today.
Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure
Great
to
we
be here.
finally got a chance to chat.
Yeah, sorry I messed up my time zones yesterday, but we got it right today, so we're on.
But daylight
Okay.
savings compounds that too, right?
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, more in my favor, right? Sorry, I still own it. But before we get into it, we'll talk a little bit about Paya, now I guess a Nouvelle company, the payment space, cool new stuff you've got going on. But I always like starting off with the brief origin story of all of our guests. So maybe you can tell us where you grew up, where you went to school, and how you landed in the payment space / mid-market ERP.
Perfect. I'll go first. My story, unfortunately, is a lot less interesting than Rebecca's, I think. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, went to the University of Michigan, and then straight into professional services, investment banking, private equity. So I was on the other side of the coin, looking at investing in fintech and payments for a handful of years. Worked at a private equity firm called GTCR, who had has been very successful investors in payments for almost 2 decades now. They just bought 55% of WorldPay last summer, as I'm sure a lot of people heard. Around 2017, we were looking to get back into payments, merchant acquiring, integrated payments, and came across a really cool opportunity, which was Sage Payments at the time. A lot of people got scared away due to some of the complexity of the business and the carve out in particular, but we were pretty committed to the fact this was a really high quality asset that had been underinvested for many years, and then dove in head first. So GTCR buys Sage Payment Solutions to carve it out of Sage Software. I went over there in an operating capacity full time, and now 7 years later have been through most corners of the company, but in particular was chief strategy officer for a handful of years, led our M&A strategy, and now running what we call our B2B business globally for Paya and then Nuvei. So I'll get into Nuvei in a second, but our B2B business primarily focuses on integrated ERP payments, accounts receivable, soon to be accounts payable, and then some embedded finance tools that we'll talk about today. What is really differentiated or unique about us is a couple things. One is a dedicated team, sales, marketing, product,
Wait, before you get
enablement.
into that, I want to hear Rebecca's origin story. I
I'll,
heard private
I'll,
equity, investment. You said a lot of people probably heard about some acquisition. I am not one of them. I am not in that world.
yep,
But
yep.
you sound like the money guy. You know how to value things and stuff. How about
It
you,
was
Rebecca?
yeah,
Go ahead.
sorry, I'll finish that thought and then kick it to Rebecca. But yeah, that was a former life, right? I think I found my calling as an
Oh,
operator.
okay. So now
You
you're more on
surely
the
did.
operating side. Gotcha.
Found my calling as an operator. I've been doing it for 7 years, and now I
Hmm.
spend all of my time leading a team fully dedicated to ERP payments.
Okay, gotcha,
Yep.
gotcha. So you do speak my language a little bit more now. Yeah, the investment world. I
Hmm.
personally am like, oh, I don't understand it.
That's right. It was no, it seems like it was literally a lifetime ago. I now fully live, breathe, and eat ERP payments, and
Gotcha,
that's what
gotcha.
brought
Okay.
me to work with Rebecca.
And I enjoy every day of it. But yeah, I live in Arkansas, but the lack of the accent is because I'm from Ohio. So, um, my journey started a little different. I actually came into ERP by way of the Air Force. I was in the Air Force for 6 years. I was in Air Force intelligence working with fighter pilots, and we did a lot of problem solving and process flows. And when I got out of the Air Force, I decided I liked that, so I went into development, and that development led me to a CPA firm that started doing ERPs because back then CPA firms were the ones that initially started it. So I started consulting and selling for them and doing development for them. Went and worked for a developer of an ERP solution. And then through the career, have had the opportunity to work with some of the best VARs in the industry. um, I've worked at a few of those, and through mergers and acquisitions and trading of staff, it seems, I have ended up working with Sean and Jeremy Burt at Veloc IT, and then the buyout to Paya and the buyout to Nuvei, where now I lead the B2B ERP products team under Ben.
And we've been able, fortunately, to just unleash Rebecca and her multiple decades of experience building up a small army of product managers and implementation folks
Yep.
underneath her, which has been awesome.
Like I said, the start and enjoying the process, it lends to what I like. So, I've been doing modifications for 30 years in a bunch of ERPs, and I grew into Acumatica, probably 7, 8 years ago, and started doing development with Sean Burt and those. And so we know the ins and outs of the solutions, and Ben and the team, we've built a huge team under us that is all ERP focused, which is a big differentiator in this particular payments market. What we decided the other day, we have over 200 years of experience or something like that.
I think
And
that number's
just
stale. I
yeah,
think we're
it
we're approaching
probably
three
is.
centuries now.
Yeah, and
Well,
just
I'm
ERP.
gonna let you guys get back to the differentiator because I agree. I think that's your big differentiator in the payments space. Before we get there, and Rebecca, I guess you stole Ben's thunder there with the differentiator, but let's still drill down on it more. But before we do, catch me up on the Nuvei
Yeah.
acquisition. So, a lot of people know Velocity, and then they knew Paya. And, talk to me about the acquisition and how it functions in terms of is Paya totally changing the way they operate, or is it more just equity infusion? Give me the story on that.
Yeah, so I'll do it in two hops, right? Paya had really strong products in Sage and good scale in terms of distribution and brand back in like 2021, 2022. We needed a killer Acumatica product and started talking with the Berts, ended up buying Velocity to check that box and have our what we believe is the best in class foundation for an Acumatica product. And the side piece of, every partnership acquisition is different. We found really great people at Velocity that built the backbone for what we've become in terms of an ERP first shop in this space. People like Rebecca, Sean Burt, Jeremy, etc. So we're building this ERP franchise 2022 into early 23. And then Paya is acquired by a multinational payment processor called Nuvei. Nuvei processes in 50 different countries around the world. They're a tier one e-commerce focused shop largely, right? Competing with the Stripes and the Adyens globally for large customers in the gaming space, the retail space, the e-commerce space. Nuvei wanted two things though. They wanted to get into the North American market deeper and to diversify their portfolio and to get into this B2B space through integrated ERP. So check both those boxes. It's been a great marriage. Fast forward about a year at this point. They've given us two things, right? They've acknowledged the strategic importance of what we do and invested behind it and foster the growth that we were achieving prior to the acquisition, but left us autonomous, which I think is really important. And you could see it go really bad really quickly had they tried to over integrate this thing. So we operate by ourselves: sales, product, marketing, development, support, the full thing, supporting our ERP customers and partners, which is great. But they also opened us to the world, right? So we can now process through a single API in 50 different countries when before we were the US and Canada only. So really big opportunity for us, particularly as we talk with some of the software publishers who are multinational.
Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Yeah, no, I didn't know that. I knew we'd catch up on the podcast. I didn't know all those details, and I got to practice. It's Nuvei, not Nuvei. I got to work on
It's
that.
supposed to be new way. So Nuvei, I think, is
Oh, okay.
that's the ethos of the brand, I guess.
Gotcha. But it sounds like, largely from an Acumatica standpoint, it's largely the same team. People are still dealing with Paya essentially from how you operate. It's just you're owned by a different company now.
Yeah, that's right. Thinking of our partners or our customers, right? Our VAR CPA partners, our hope is you would never notice a difference, except there's more investment and focus here. And for the rare few that have needs in LATAM or Europe, we have a full set of solutions now to serve you.
Cool. And so, I'll let you guys now get back to the differentiator and drill down on that a little bit more. I
We
know
were
the
so
payment
eager to
space.
jump in. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, I know the payment space is very crowded. There's a lot of options out there, and a lot of times you look at them, it's like they all do the same thing. But there's a reason why there's multiple options out there. And go ahead and I'll let you go ahead and drill down on that now.
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep it simple, right? There's four things to me that differentiate us, right? One is the quality and breadth of our integrations, and if I think about Acumatica specifically, put breadth aside, it's quality. Bidirectional, as native as can be within the ERP, and Rebecca can elaborate on that far better than me, but the quality of the way data comes in and data comes out is really important. We always build it with master developers. Sean Burt specifically has been on your podcast, who is an Acumatica master developer, I think one of the best in the world. Second is Rebecca's team. And, I think it's easy for people to say, but it comes through volumes and the way we interact with our customers and our partners. We have built a large scale team that's ERP first and payments second. Right. We always value the ERP experience far more. So we speak the language of our partners and our customers. And then the payments is ancillary and secondary. But when you're having a rich conversation about a solution grounded in what it does in the ERP and how it benefits a business, or you're giving a partner comfort as to how this will fit into the overall stack or solution without payments is do no harm for most of our partners, right? They care about the software and they want the payments to work and not cause problems. So we can give them that comfort and we display it. Third, in terms of valuation, is one-stop shop. We are differentiation. We are a philosophical believer in the office of the CFO and vendor consolidation. So we've really done AAR masterfully at this point. AR automation, payment processing, workflow, post-back, the whole yard. Getting into AP to have one single API for AR and AP. And now we've launched some embedded finance tools like invoice financing that we'll talk about today that not only gives you a sense of where you're at from a working capital perspective, but gives you tools as a CFO or a treasurer to do something about it. So to me, those are the big ones.
Yeah, and I've gotten that impression from the Burts before. They've been on, like, as you said, they've been on this podcast before, and especially that first differentiator is being ERP first and payment second. And specifically, and I don't know, maybe you could comment on this, Rebecca, but I've heard this from VARs that Paya does a good job of wanting to make sure the thing works, even if it's a problem with another customization. So like,
That's right.
really being invested in the success of a client's Acumatica instance, even if it's not even Paya's fault that something's not working. And I don't know, that maybe I'm going to fact check that with you, Rebecca. Maybe you can comment
No,
further on that.
no, you're absolutely right. Paya is a small piece of their overall solution. So we want to make sure the overall health and how they use it is proper. So even if we get an indication that something isn't fitting right, it's not just a knee-jerk reaction. It's not us, it's another solution. We dig into the solution. We'll get a snapshot. We dig into the solution to determine, is it us? Is it our integration with the publisher, Acumatica? Is it an Acumatica bug? Or is it an integration with a third party that we need to figure out? And 9 times out of 10, our dev team will figure out a workaround to make it work with that situation. Whether we fix the publisher's issue, we work around their workflow, or we work around a third party, or we call up a third party to work with them. So we really try hard not doing the old, well, it's not my modification, go look for someone else. And it's in a world where there's a lot of add-ons to your base solution, it's very easy to do that. And in our department, we have, tried to make sure that it's the customer's experience with the ERP that we're looking at, not just the customer's experience with the payments piece of the ERP.
Yeah, for me, that in the Acumatica world, that differentiator stands out to me personally, just because Acumatica is so highly customizable. And especially now with the more low code, no code capabilities they're introducing, now you've got not just other ISV products, but you've got stuff the client's building themselves, and it can get really complicated really fast. And you can easily get left in a whose problem is this situation. So yeah, that one really stands out to me, that
That's right.
that ERP first, payment second philosophy. And it's been that way for years.
It has.
That one really stands out to me.
It has. The synergy between the developers and myself and how the whole team has been built. Everybody we've added to the team has the same mindset. They all come from product. Most of them come from product development as well. So they're all very used to digging into the problems and not just learning the top level ERP.
I like that. And so, Ben, you alluded to AP side. I actually, when the Burts were on the podcast before, they alluded to that as well. Go ahead and give us an update on that. So yeah, you've nailed down the AR side, payments, inbound payments, and now wanting to be that one-stop shop, not just from a brand standpoint, but technically from an API standpoint. Go ahead and catch us up to speed to what you got going on there.
Yeah, that's something our partners and customers should be able to expect from us the second half of this year. It's something we're taking due care and time to build well, just given the importance and our philosophy about doing no harm. But it's going to be an AP solution through a single API with our AR. So you have one portal and dashboard for everything money in and money out. And I think the key differentiators there, the key things to focus on is one, you'll be able to pay with any modality. We'll have virtual card, all the OCT methods, ACH and check, and I know check is super important in the US still today. Two, all of the workflow will be handled through our portal, working with the ERP, including reconciling paid invoices at the invoice or the SKU level back into the ERP itself. Right, it's not going to be a batch of funds here, and then you have to figure out later that batch of funds pertains to which invoice. Three, you'll be able to pay as if it's from your own bank account. And this is something I think people that are dealing with other providers, like maybe an Avid or someone, don't appreciate. But we're not going to require you to pre-fund a bank account and then pay your vendors out of that account 14 days later and create a days payable outstanding or shorten your DPO effectively and impact your working capital. We're going to be able to make it as if you were paying straight from your bank account the day you're attempting to pay the invoice, which is fantastic. If working capital is your focus, and we know for a lot of our SMB customers it is right now, particularly in a high interest rate environment. And then lastly, we designed very carefully this notion of check fallback that I think is something that misses in the market a lot, where you can have all the best intentions of paying your supplier electronically, but something fails with the payment method. You've approved the invoice, and now the invoice is coming due. We have an automated ability just to send a paper check and take care of it, as opposed to having delinquent payments. So there's more to come on the solution, but it's something that we are attempting to handle the most important needs of our customers, be able to do it through a single API with AR, which is the real value, and something, it's not, I don't want to sell it short of being simplistic, but it's something that'll get the job done, but handle it with your AR and that consolidate vendors, which is really important.
It's a solution that follows our same modality we use for AR. We keep the merchant in the ERP. So we're not wanting them to jump out and go to another ERP to do anything. We keep the merchant in the ERP, and we keep whoever they're dealing with, whether it's customers on the AR side or vendors on the AP side. They're the ones that utilize the portal. So the portal has to be functional for them. The ERP is functional for the merchant. Now, we not only utilize the ERP's capabilities, but in times we also extend the ERP's capabilities. Because we are developers and we're developing in this space, we can add functionality to the ERP within the ERP to help the merchant do something. So the AR and the AP follow the same mode. They do whatever process is in the ERP, and then it moves to the portal for whoever they're interfacing with to do their process. And then everything is bi-directional and comes back around to posts in the ERP.
I'm opening up a note document because there's three things I want to ask you about, and I don't want to forget them. The first thing is I'm going to circle back to the check part that you mentioned. So yeah, in the U.S., checks are still used way more than they should be.
55%.
Yeah.
Is that really it? Wow, it's still that high, even post-COVID. I didn't know it was that high. Wow.
It was like 70% pre-COVID. So it's a meaningful movement, but
wow. Tell me how that works then. So like, if a check needs to be cut, where does it physically come from, and how does that happen?
It's going to, if the check is going to be cut, so basically the vendor information is going to the portal, the vendor's choosing how they want to get paid. If they fill out the ACH or any of the other modalities, then they'll get paid that way. If they don't, then it's a check fallback. Now they can also choose check if they want to check, and just make sure they have all their information in there. That check is going to be cut by our processor, which Nuvei does own. So our processor will send the check out and draw money from the merchant's account at that time. So the check will get mailed and sent, and then the information will come back to the ERP.
Yeah, I think one thing to call out too, right? And this was all idea phase when we were standalone Paya. the acquisition of Nuve brought us full money transmission licensure across the US that allows us to facilitate this. I think that's a really
Hmm.
important thing to know.
Yeah, that's huge because actually getting that check cut is a very manual process, and you have to have, I mean, a facility to do that, right? I mean, we're talking probably a warehouse type of thing to actually make that happen. So that makes a lot of sense. So it's from the Paya standpoint, it's a processor, but it's still under one roof from a who owns it standpoint. It sounds like.
That's right.
Yes.
And then,
Absolutely.
yeah, you called out the difference between your approach and the Avid Pay or Avid Exchange approach. I've seen this one before where it sounds like so you're pulling the money even in a check situation out of the client's bank account when it gets cash, not when it gets cut. Or can you give me more details on that? Or maybe it's still being worked out.
The funds will get pulled as the payouts are being distributed. So if the processing department is doing payouts for $10,000, that's when the funds will get pulled from the merchant's bank,
Okay,
because that's when the
gotcha.
check is cut. The same as if they were cutting a check in-house and they were creating the GL back into their system, they would count the check, the money being taken out at the time of check cutting.
But then what's different is because it's coming out of your own bank account, you don't have to pre-fund another account
We
and
don't
Exactly.
have
have
that.
the
Yeah.
pre-funding escrow function that some of the other payout functionality people do.
It's more tangible, I think, for like, think of an ACH payout method, right? The money has two hops where, you could owe money to your vendor uh, in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks, right? But you're paying in an escrow account 2 weeks in advance of that, and then it sits there not in your own working capital for a week before it ends up with the supplier.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, so you're not making so much on the float of the money. You're making money other ways on the transaction or something like that. So yeah, and I like that. Just from a I'm not the CFO type, so I mean I did get my CPA license many years ago, but that's like accounting, not finance. And
Right.
the whole like money earning money. I wish I was better at it, but I don't functionally do it as well. But to me, just from a workflow standpoint, that's so much nicer because I'm not having to do, like you said, two hops. I'm
Exactly.
able to just work in Acumatica, know it's going to come out of my bank. That's nice. I like that. I like that approach.
Exactly. Yep.
And it sounds like a big part of why you're able to do this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but being able to stay, I think you even used the word autonomous from an operational standpoint as Paya, and be able to focus on product and not spread yourself super thin across now having to do all this other stuff, and be able to just hook into a check cutting processor almost
Yes.
like an API, but know that it's still owned under one roof. I mean, that sounds like the reason why you're able to pull all of this off. Am I wrong there?
Nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. We are basically, think of us like we are a preferred client of some of these back end services that Nuvei has, but everything we do is autonomous, where Rebecca's team can be unleashed to deliver product and solutions for ERP customers without having to be, as you said, spread thin or lose that focus.
That's really smart. I like that approach. Yeah, I like the kind of the combination. Sometimes it makes sense to partner on something. Other times it makes sense to own something. It sort of sounds like you're able to do the best of both worlds. You can kind of dip into a partnership situation when you want, and but you're not losing ownership of the autonomous key important part, which is understanding the Acumatica ERP workflow and being able to make that as pleasant as possible to the end user. So I like that approach. That's really cool.
Exactly. Yep.
So, on it sounds like the AP side is the main new cool thing that you're working on. And uh,
I would challenge you with one. We have one extra one,
oh, you have more. Okay, because I
it
was going to
depends.
drill down further on it. All right,
Oh, it
we'll come
depends
back
who
to it then.
you
Go ahead. I'll let you cover the high level first. Go ahead.
It depends who you ask, right? Rebecca and I always have great conversations about this. So AP, I think, makes sense for us to offer. So you have both sides of the coin. But the product I'm most excited about, and the one that's coming to market now for Acumatica users, is our invoice financing product, which is going to be the first in a suite of embedded finance solutions. I think it is an amazing time to start offering that in a high interest rate environment where SMBs are very cost of capital or conscious, and the spread between the APRs that invoice financing can offer and prime have never been thinner. And then you couple that with the fact that a lot of people have tried to come at this space to offer invoice financing to suppliers. We have phenomenal real estate inside of the ERP where you can finance something at the invoice level in our portal. And if you can do it in a way that makes sense, again, from a cost of capital perspective, I think that's kind of nirvana, and that's where we're at. And we've built a killer solution that one click, single, decent low APR financing inside of the ERP with full accounting reconciliation of the back end. I think the market is really, really looking forward to this now.
From a
Makes sense.
product geek, what he said at the end is what excites me. It has full GL postability back into the accounting solution.
So
So
I gotta hit both things there. So hold on a sec. So yeah, it makes sense to me. The money guy is most excited about the finance, or historically, a lifetime ago, money guy is interested about the financing part. Tell me functionally, is it? I know, like, you can send the invoice out of Acumatica and have a link there where someone just clicks and it takes them right into the portal to pay. Like from a workflow standpoint, would they just click that link and then instead of seeing pay with credit card, they'd have another option now where they could finance it right there?
So I do want to clarify, and I do a bad job explaining. This is invoice financing to the supplier, not buy now, pay later for
yes.
the buyer. So we are giving,
Okay.
if you have a supplier with a net 90-day invoice and you need that money now, not in 90 days, you can click in our UI and you're either already underwritten or you can be underwritten in like 2 seconds. And then you can have that money in your bank account tomorrow and be completely out of the transaction flow with the buyer, but it's all handled and done inside of your ERP from an accounting perspective.
Okay, so I'm slow. Sorry. We're talking the AR side. We're talking the AP side. When you say
This
AR
supplier,
is
side.
AR. So you
AR,
are
it
a
is the AR. So
supplier.
that's what I was thinking. So like, this is someone, your customer,
Yes, this is
correct?
our existing
Okay.
customer. We're doing your payment processing and your workflow as a
Yeah.
supplier, and now you can pull forward money on outstanding invoices to buyers using this tool.
Oh, right. Okay. So I was thinking AR, but I wasn't. You're right. That makes, yeah. Okay. So you're pulling the money forward. You're essentially paying your own, getting your own
Yes,
invoices paid.
yes.
And so the customer's not involved at all.
No, historically,
Okay.
the
Okay.
way
That
they
makes
did
sense.
this in the market was they did AR factoring. So merchants that wanted to get more cash flow when they had accounts receivable, they would sell a portion of those accounts receivables to the bank or somebody as a factor of the value. And then whoever bought them would then work with whoever owes the money. But in this
Gotcha.
instance, we wanted to keep it in the merchant. So the experience of the customer is still with the merchant. The merchant doesn't have to tell the customer they owe anything at all. The merchant decides all within the ERP which invoices they want to finance, which offer they're going to accept from the finance company. They get the money, we post it to the general ledger. So the general ledger is correct. Then the client pays them, so the invoice is correct, and then the third party pulls the money back out of the bank, and we post the general ledger to offset the liability again.
Oh, that is interesting. So I want to get on the product side. So, but
Yeah.
from your customer standpoint, so I'm running Acumatica. I sell stuff to my customers. They have outstanding invoices. From their standpoint, they still owe money and they
Yes.
have no idea that I financed it on the back end because
Nope.
they
That's
still owe
correct.
the merchant. The merchant's still the one
Hmm.
they're paying. So on the
Exactly.
back end, I'm just, like you said, pulling money in sooner on specific invoices.
Yep.
Then now I'm getting, Rebecca, why you're excited on the product side, because
Hmm.
I'm not just going out to a bank and doing a lump sum of money. It sounds like I'm granular down to the invoice level. So your solution knows,
Absolutely.
and you're actually recording a liability, but you're pulling it out of AR and you're doing all those entries basically for the
Yeah.
accounting team for them. They don't have to do that.
Actually, the AR doesn't come out because when you do the general ledger posting, you recognize the cash because you're getting paid ahead of time. So you recognize the cash, you recognize the liability, and you recognize the fee that comes with getting this money early. Then
But
when
it
the
does
customer,
reduce. So yeah, I love getting into technical
yeah,
details on this product. It does reduce the AR, but just moves it to a long-term liability. All right,
Mm,
yeah.
it
Tell me
doesn't
more about that.
reduce AR until the invoice is paid. The invoice is still outstanding for the customer. When the customer pays the invoice, the AR, the normal general ledger process happens. The financing process is over and above the invoice AR process. We're just receiving money, recording a liability, recording the fees. And then there is a designated time when the third party is going to pull the fees or pull the loan back out of the merchant's account. And that's when we pull the money out of the bank account and we offset the liability
Oh,
so
okay.
that you
So it's
have everything paid for. But the customer's piece is still worked just like normal Acumatica. And this is all embedded into the invoice, invoice by invoice. So you see the posting, you see the GL piece and where it is, and you see the link that is associated with that particular invoice.
and it's all done from I'm working in the accounting department at a company using Acumatica. I never leave Acumatica to do this.
You never leave Acumatica. You know how Acumatica can split a screen? We just split the screen and pop it up on the other side.
Cool.
And it
Very
pops in
cool.
the other iframes that the third party is using to pop up what you need to go through them. And because of the money transferring licenses and the legalities with that, we do have to pop up their information. So we just pop you into theirs to do I think it's 3 questions to get initially approved. And if there's any issues, they'll contact you. And then once it's approved, you pop back in to see your offers. You select them. It comes into a dashboard so you know what your offers are. And then you select on an invoice. You go out and say, oh, this offer, I want to do this one. And that's assigned to that invoice. Everything's done in the back end and you're good to move. You have a dashboard that shows you everything that's outstanding, everything that you've used, and the amounts that you have available. And we're utilizing Acumatica's processes to do all of the status updates and offerings automatically if you want to post them like that.
Very cool. Yeah, you guys definitely impressed me as being payment geeks, not just payment pushers.
I got to correct you though, Tim. That was ERP geeking. That wasn't payments geeking.
That was ERP.
Well,
I
okay,
am
good point.
truly an
Good
thank you,
point.
Ben, because I am not a payment geek. I'm an ERP.
Yeah.
Yeah, when Ben said come do a podcast, I'm like, what is it? Bring a geek? So, yeah, I am
Good
definitely
point. Yeah,
ERP
it's an
product.
ERP first. You're right. ERP
Mm-hmm.
geeks who are embedded in the payment processor. Yeah,
Yes.
no,
Yeah.
you're not just leaning on the VAR ecosystem for that. No, good correction. So yeah, you guys have always done a really good job with reconciliation, and sounds like you're
Mm-hmm.
just kind of carrying that into the financing end of it. I'm curious, since you mentioned dashboard, since you guys are always thinking ahead of what to do. I know that from if I try to think like a CFO, a cash flow perspective, being able to know when things are coming due, AR, AP, and now you're throwing a financing wrinkle into it. Are you working on any type of reporting, whether it's a dashboard or any type of report that would give kind of that nice line chart of projected cash flow?
We do have a GI associated with the solution right now. The full dashboard to incorporate ARAP and the AR financing. It's a great idea. I'll look at the roadmap. I'll
Yeah,
let
but I
Something
wouldn't
Tim
expect it
decide
to
it.
be there
Yeah.
now. But yeah,
you
it
got to
just
have
seems
the
like
AP side for it to make sense.
Yeah.
Then yes.
right.
Yeah.
Because now you have the complete picture, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
what
That's
you
right.
haven't had before. But now, from a CFO perspective, you now know everything to give me that projected cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
As ERP geeks who work
Yeah.
for a payment processor,
That's right.
That's
I'm
right.
sure you guys would nail that. Once that piece is in place. That's
It'll
cool.
help. You're exactly right. That's the direction we're going once the AP side is sorted out, and then it'll help people understand one when you need to finance invoices and maybe think about it more strategically, and then two how you smartly elongate your payables outstanding, right? And
Right.
that's where we're trying to help our customers out right now.
Yeah. I mean, you get really geeky about it. You start to think about just suggested, it just suggests it for you when it thinks you're going to need it based on all that.
Exactly.
That's really interesting
Yeah.
because, yeah, I feel like those two worlds have historically been very separate, the AP and the AR payment side. Bringing that under one roof is not easy to do. I know you guys have been working on it for a while, and I like the approach that you've taken with the kind of partnership where it makes sense, continue to own it where it makes sense. And then once you finish that off, you're thinking the second half of the year,
Hmm.
then it gets really fun. From as a reporting
Yeah.
guy, it gets really fun now that you have the whole picture, the data at least. That
Yeah.
gets
I
really
mean,
interesting.
a lot of our roadmap gets generated from the demos and the discussions we have on people that are actually going to use the solution. We're very much voice of the customer. So when you look at our AR automation piece, our what we've added in 2023, 30, 40 options, 90% of them all came from demos and VARs that we talked to or merchants that we talked to that said, I run my business like this. And we were like, oh, that's interesting. How about if we do this for you? And we incorporated it, and somebody else used it because they thought nobody else ever ran their business the way they ran their business, you know? And so that's very much how we build our products, by
Yeah,
voice of the merchant or voice of the customer.
the benefits of being ERP geeks. Yeah, you get into that level of detail.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious there. I don't know this, but like, Acumatica has community forums now and they have product suggestions in their portal. I know it can be a headache to spin something like that up, but do you have anything like that, or is it just the roadmap just something you feed internally based on all your conversations?
We're
Most of the road, go ahead.
Also, yeah, we're getting better at it, right? It's
Yeah.
something I think we lagged for a while. So now, we just relaunched our VAR President's Club this last quarter, actually, and part of that is, basically a summit where our top VARs end up having complete access to Rebecca and team and really driving roadmap and having a two-way feedback loop. And then also leaning it into the customer side where we're trying to figure out ways to get more transparency to our customers or prospective customers about features coming down the road. As Rebecca is saying, it's the best stuff we can put on our roadmap because it's real. So
Mm-hmm.
having more
Right.
access to it and more ways to consolidate it, I think are really big focuses for us. And it's something we're trying to incorporate, not just on our side where we do it behind a curtain, but with more transparency to the world.
One of the other differentiators that, from my team, at least in my perspective, from what I've worked with through the years, is that we've been able to build this team with ER people, but those people are also the ones that take the experience from the demo and the needs analysis through the implementation, through the training, through the support. It's all the same people. So the information we're getting and the contact that they're having with this level of knowledge is consistent from the demo through their support. They're not dealing with different people to implement it. And, oh, you're so knowledgeable, I want to buy your product. But then the implementation people or even the support people are not quite as knowledgeable in the entire ERP experience. So it's been
Very
a
cool.
big differentiator for our team.
Makes sense. I was wondering if I could circle, and Ben, you'll need to unmute. I muted you because of the clicking. When you're ready to talk, you can unmute. But I want to circle back to the AP side, if we can, for a moment. Can you talk to me? Because it still drives me nuts that I didn't know it was still 55% checks in the U.S. So if I'm the accounts payable person at my company running Acumatica, and what you're working on to deliver second half of this year, is it? I like to think of it this way, and you can say if this is an oversimplification, but talk to me about the flow that you envision happening. I think of it as being a print driver, in that instead of printing to the printer, I want to print it to Paya, and then it'll go out to the vendor via whatever method is set up. Functionally, from a workflow standpoint, is that oversimplification? Maybe you could walk me through how you're envisioning it.
No, you would have a payment method for the vendor that it's going to Paya Nuvei, AP, whatever we end up calling it. So that would be instead of check or ACH or whatever you have as a payment method, it would go out there. So basically, you would do the normal process flow in Acumatica. You would select your invoices that you're going to pay, you'd run them through the approval flow, whatever you do, you would generate them, and that batch or that particular one, because of the payment method, would automatically go out to the portal. And that would go out with when it wants to be paid and who the vendor is. So the vendor has already gone out to the portal previously because you've synced your vendors with the portal. And all those vendors have already gone through the process of updating their vendor system for how they want to pay, how they want to be paid. So when I turn this on, I'd go and I'd sync my vendors. Vendors would go out to the portal. They'd automatically send notifications to the vendor. The vendor would log into the portal, determine how they want to get paid. I run my AP process. I get the ones that I want to pay. They say they're going to be paid by the portal. They go out to the portal with their payment date. My scheduler takes care of that. It reviews who the vendor is. And if the vendor is totally set up, I just wait for the scheduled date. If the vendor's not set up, I send a notice to the vendor. You have something that's going to be paid to you. You're not set up properly. So once it's set up, then we go through. If they never come back and I don't have enough information to send a check, I go back to the ERP and notify the merchant that this particular payment cannot be paid because I don't have enough information. Otherwise, everything else flows through the payouts, comes back, status gets updated, gets pushed back to the portal, and the items get released because
And that
now they're
starts to
paid.
get more elegant too when you have repeat buyers and suppliers, which happens frequently, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got two questions on the initial. Well, I guess I'm going to work backwards. My first question is on like the new vendor. Can I go in and make the selection for them if they tell me on the phone, or do you
Mhm.
want them to go into the portal so that they do it?
No, you could. Now we're
Okay.
incorporating W-9s and things like that into the portal. And as we get
Okay.
into Europe, we'll have other criteria that'll be required. So if you're requiring a W-9, you might want them in the portal to verify their information. Also,
Oh,
if it's
yeah.
ACH, we want the vendor to go into the portal to enter their account information. We don't want post-it notes with routing information posted all over someone's machine. So for compliancy or even security, we want the merchant to be able to offer this to their vendor as a secure method to give me how you want to be paid.
I like that. I hadn't thought
And
about W-9s. That's
yeah,
nice. I
and
really
of
like
course,
that.
we want to cut down the amount of paper checks, save a tree, pay by ACH.
Interesting. Okay, can I, since you brought up W-9, can I say, are you good at, I mean, does Nuvei have under the umbrella 1099 form processor?
No, unfortunately,
That'd
we
be
work
cool
we work
eventually. That'd
closely
be
with
really
one.
cool because
Yeah.
what a pain that is to have to do. Wow, that really opens up some cool stuff. Um, okay, so then I want to then back up in the flow to you mentioned it just being one payment method on the ERP side. So Nuvei AP, whatever you end up
Mm-hmm.
Nuvei AP, whatever you end up calling it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't need to know what that vendor wants. I just
Mm-mm.
say send. I don't want to deal with this one. Send it out to the Nuvei network,
Yep.
right?
You're just doing your check run. I'm going to pay all of this. It's X amount of money. I'm sending it up to the portal. The portal will determine if the vendor is already set up or not and notify everybody accordingly and pay out on the scheduled date accordingly too.
And I really
Yeah, I mean,
like that you're utilizing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ben.
I was saying we're putting a lot of stock into the back end, the ERP experience and the reconciliation. I think we have a lot of future in the as we launch this, there are a lot of competitors that say, hey, upload a CSV file of all your payments, and then we're going to put a lot of manpower or machine learning or whatever you want to call it into making sure each vendor's paid a very specific way. Our philosophy is that's going to sort out through time with repeat buyers and suppliers and through the simple process Rebecca laid out. So most of our focus in the product is really on making sure that it's got the same great experience in the ERP. Everything's reconciling the way that we take pride in and makes it easy for finance departments. And then that cash flow benefit is an extra piece of that, if you will.
Yeah, and I really like that you're using the ERP's payment method because that gives me, as an a lowly accounts payable clerk, full control. I'm not losing
Yes.
anything, right? I'm not saying
Yes.
I've got to flip this big switch. So now everything goes through Nuvei. I get to decide invoice by invoice if I still want to print it to my printer because it's that annoying supplier who walks into my office and hovers over me.
Mm-hmm.
I still have the flexibility to do that. I only
That's right.
change the
Yes.
payment method on the specific vendors and specific invoices that I want to route through your system.
Yes.
I like that. I like that. Tell me more than Ben, former money guy, about the financing side. So you mentioned financing there. Were you in the context? We're in the AP side now. Tell me more about the CFO pitch to why this is important.
So as you think about we're going to call it a embedded finance suite, right? You have AR, AP, embedded finance. Those are our three pillars of what we're going to offer CFOs. As you think about the payable side of embedded finance, because we talked about the receivables side a little bit, we're going to look at trade credit solutions, in particular ways for SMBs if you're in between, John Deere and a parts manufacturer, and you have the next huge order that's going to fundamentally change your business and propel growth, we don't want you to be hamstrung in terms of not being able to afford the parts to fill the job. So we're looking at solutions on that side of the coin so our customers can pay their vendors on credit and be able to take larger and more frequent orders to grow their business. That's really important to us. And then shifting back to the receivables side, one thing that we're really focused on too is, okay, so prime is 7-8% now. APRs could be 11-12% based on the situation we've set up, so you can finance invoices you can finance at the invoice level. We know who that buyer is. We know how many times that buyer and supplier have paid each other. And the most important thing when you're doing underwriting or you're looking at the credit worthiness of the invoice is not how long the supplier's been in business or how much sales the supplier has, but it's who's the buyer and what's their credit worthiness. So as we incorporate machine learning into that piece, because we already have the data, you'll start to see that spread compress and you'll start to see APRs come way down where, I mean, these are really low risk loans. When you think about, again, the guy who's supplying parts to John Deere, right? That's money good. And we have the data to prove it. So we're really focused on driving already attractive APRs down further, which will finance more invoices, improve working capital. It's a great proposition.
Interesting. So what you talked about earlier being a financing option on the AR side where you could pull money in sooner, that's like something that's launching second half of the year. Is that right?
Not, within days, yes.
Within
Okay.
days.
So that's like
So sorry,
coming.
not second half. That is now. Acumatica users will have access
Gotcha.
to that like this month.
Okay. What about the AP side? Is that more second half of the
That's
year?
second half of the year.
Okay.
That's
So then what you're talking about in terms of financing, that's a little further out. That's more something that you can bring to the table once you have that AP thing in place.
Exactly.
Am I right? Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right. Yep.
that gets.
We're talking ahead in terms of where's this going,
But yeah, bringing that AP piece in place, I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah, I mean, it opens up the door to giving the full cash flow perspective to the CFO. That's simple reporting, But now being able to do machine learning to know that's a really fascinating scenario where, so if I understand you right, you're now saying someone who wants to go after a bigger customer like a John Deere, and in order to go after bigger customers, the biggest challenge is cash. Because now you have to have the cash to deliver. There's a time where you have to be pulling product in. You're not getting paid, right? But you're saying with machine learning and being in the payment space and being now owned by Nuvei, this larger payments provider, you are thinking you'll have the chops to be able to make the case for loans. I don't have to go cobble together all that information to go make the case to my bank. You're going to be able to essentially do it, pull the data in for them, something like that.
Yes. So, and I think I conflated, or I didn't properly delineate two products, right? So there's two ways I'm thinking about that. One is on the exactly as you described, where a supplier who wants bigger customers, we want to offer that supplier the ability to finance their payables so they can buy the parts to fulfill the bigger jobs. That's down the road once we launch AP. Second, the same supplier that's using our invoice financing tool to bring forward their invoices, can do that out of the gate today at, let's say, 12%. But the underwriting criteria for that is really who's the supplier, how long have they been in business, how much sales did they do. We have all the data elements, and we're working on a second iteration of that product that looks at who's the buyer, how often does this buyer pay this supplier, which will make the loan cheaper for our customer.
Gotcha. Yeah, so you're doing the legwork for the underwriting because you have the data, and that's why you're
Exactly.
saying it can get approved in seconds, or and
Exactly.
you're presenting options as well. This isn't. So I think I caught that earlier, where you're even on the thing that people can do now on the AR side. They have options. It's not just this is your only financing
Yeah,
option. Is
we're,
that
we're
right?
looking to get the best possible rate for those customers, right? That's right.
That's very cool. Yeah. So again, I think that really speaks to the smart approach I think you've taken, in that you've maintained autonomy in the how the customer interacts with your system, but now you're owned by Nuve, which can deliver things at scale with killer rates. I think that's a really cool approach.
Exactly.
And
Exactly right.
remember, the ERP has all this information. So it's not necessarily Nuve that has the information. The ERP has that information, which we're going to make available through the use of the integrations.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean it's one of those things that has been dormant in ERPs for a long time, but you're tapping into
Hmm.
that dormant data and doing cool things with it. I like that.
Yeah, they have to pull it out to provide it to whoever's providing them the money anyway. So why don't we just integrate it and make it to where you're not pulling a bunch of spreadsheets and whatnot?
Very cool. I didn't think I was going to get that excited about payment finance stuff, but you guys have touched on some cool stuff. Well,
It's
awesome.
look, we've been excited about this for a while, and hearing someone like yourself have positive reaction to it or get a little excited about it, kind of it's very gratifying for us to think through it. But this is something we're really excited to bring to the market, and I have a high degree of confidence that customers are going to be really happy with it.
So the AR financing side is something that's coming in days, or we could think of it as
Days.
it's available now. The
Yes.
AP side, second half. So goal is by the end of 2024. So you're gonna have a fun Acumatica Summit next year at the Win.
Oh, it'll be a blast. Yeah, that's right. The timing is pretty perfect, and hopefully we have another trick or two up our sleeves to launch in January too.
Very cool. Well, hey, I know we're coming to the top of the hour here. Anything else that we that you want to pull out of your sleeve, or do you feel like we covered the bases?
I think we had a good run around here. We're really proud of what we're doing at Acumatica. I think our customers and the quality of our solution and the interfacing with Rebecca's team and that experience speaks volumes. People, we talked a bit about the brand, right? We are still Paya, a Nuve company. That brand is going to be around for a while, so hopefully we're not confusing any folks out there. We stress it daily to make sure we don't. But no, we appreciate you having us on and giving us a chance to talk about some cool stuff we're doing for Acumatica users.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time. Again, sorry about the time zone mix up yesterday. I'm glad we got it done, and we'll get this episode out. So anyone interested in either AR or AP payments, or it really makes sense to do both. It sounds like Paya slash Nuve is in a great position to be able to help people out.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, Tim.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Well, that's it for now. We'll catch you on the next episode of ogforums.com Real Talk. Thanks for listening, and take care.